So our business editor, Matthew Warren, is here. He's looking at the continuing effects, really, of Superstorm Stanley. The East Coast, of course, continuing to be battered. The economic impact is going to be huge, isn't it?
Yes, it's going to be huge. Well, already, of course, we've seen stock markets closed on Monday. They're going to be closed another day on Tuesday. No word yet on whether that will extend even further. First time the stock market has been closed for 2 days since 9/11 in 2001, then when they were closed for 4 days. In fact, companies have been rescheduling their results announcements as well, and already some initial estimates are being made on what this is all costing the economy. The University of Maryland is estimating that about $45 billion this could cost. There will, of course, be spending because there'll be a lot of cleaning up to do. That could be up to $36 billion, but we won't know for sure, of course, until this has all passed through and we can really see what the damage has been.
OK, the markets that are open then, how have they been affected by all this?
Well, the Asian markets, as you say, they are open. And in fact, the Nikkei was trading up earlier in the session, but now it is down by about 1%. And I can tell you why. There were hopes that there would be monetary easing by the Japanese central bank. That did come through in the form of an 11 trillion yen or 108 billion euro bond buying program. But it looks like the market's underwhelmed by that. The Nikkei down there.
Now, massive story here in France. Could France be about to scrap its 35-hour week? Be highly controversial this if it happened, wouldn't it?
Yes, now the 35-hour week was introduced in 2000 when France had a socialist government then. It's been around ever since. Lots of business people would like to see the back of it. Well, there was an interview in Le Parisien aujourd'hui today with the Prime Minister, who we can see there. He was asked whether or not it would be possible to move to a 39-hour week. His response, pourquoi pas? Why not? That's interesting. First sign that might be moving.
OK, we'll see if it comes to anything, of course. Matthew's also got details of the so-called bad bank in Spain.
Yes, now, of course, the Spanish property crash left about 180 billion euros of bad property loans on the books of Spanish banks. That's been causing them all sorts of problems. Government wants to clean them up by taking a lot of those bad debts off them and putting them into what's called this bad bank. Its official name is the Sareb. Well, more details have been emerging about that. On average, banks wishing to get rid of those bad loans will get a discount of around half the value, 45.6% discount in detail on average across property loans. And it's hoped that together with a bailout for banks of up to 100 billion euros, the Spanish banking sector can get functioning again as it should do.
OK, we've got some company news for you now. Later today, Italy's Fiat announcing its results.
So that's right. Like several European car makers, Fiat's been having a lot of problems, particularly here in Europe with sales. Now, its latest results will be out at around 4 p.m. European time. Now, as well as those numbers, of particular interest in its home market of Italy will be any indications of whether Fiat plans to move production out of the country entirely.
Giuseppe Dalterio has been working at Fiat's Pomigliano factory for 23 years. He's currently on reduced pay and is worried about his future. The union representative is among some 2,000 employees on a temporary layoff as the plant shut down again for 2 weeks.
We're certainly disappointed. We were expecting car production to pick up again so we could go back to work. But the global economic crisis has slowed down that plan.
Fiat is among the European automakers hardest hit by the economic downturn. Car sales in the first 9 months of this year was down 7.6% in the EU compared with last year. In Italy, they were down more than 20%. The company is criticised for scrapping the so-called Fabbrica Italia project. In 2010, it promised to invest 20 billion euros to double production in Italy in exchange for concessions from unions such as flexible working hours. Yet Fiat's 5 plants in Italy are now operating at 50% capacity on average, the lowest level for any major car maker. It has opened a new factory in Serbia to make the flagship Fiat 500.
The Serbian government financed 50% of the project, which is something the Italian government cannot do. And labour costs are different. A Serbian worker makes 300 euros a month.
All eyes are on Fiat's latest earnings report due out on Tuesday and on whether its CEO, Sergio Marchionne, will announce any further plans to abandon production in Italy.
And now for some of the day's other company news and some big changes at Apple. The man responsible for the mapping application on the new iPhone is out. That new app was criticised for errors and misplaced towns. Scott Forstall has been with the company since 1997. Also out is the head of retail, John Browett. He'd been with the company for just 6 months.
Virgin Australia has sold a 10% stake to Singapore Airlines. The move is a response to a tie-up between Australian rival Qantas and Dubai's Emirates airline. Both airlines focusing their strategies on the lucrative Asian market. Singapore paying 84 million euros for that holding.
And the Swiss banking giant UBS has announced 10,000 job cuts. That represents about 16% of its workforce. The cuts were announced as the bank gave its latest results. UBS made a loss of 1.8 billion euros in the most recent quarter.
Now, in the US, China's been a frequent scapegoat, of course, for both Barack Obama and for Mitt Romney as well.
Yes, Romney indeed calling Beijing a currency manipulator responsible for stealing American jobs. And there have been strong words from Barack Obama as well. But the relationship between the US and China is far more complicated than perhaps politicians would want you to know.
It's the sound of success. Each week, Jonathan's company sells thousands of these low-cost motorbikes, all designed right here in Cleveland, Ohio. An all-American business. Well, not quite. Cleveland Cycle Works couldn't find any factories to produce the bike at home, so they turned to China.
We're not having the greatest time here, so what better chance than to bring a ton of jobs back into the city and employ, Clevelanders, for instance, but no one wanted to take on the task, so we were kind of forced to go overseas, and China reached out and they were able to help us.
China and the United States have a complex, interdependent business relationship. Each year, Beijing buys up Washington's debt, and Chinese companies buy American goods. This expert says a trade war would be in nobody's interest.
15% to 20% of American exports do go to China. Obviously, we sell a lot to Canada and Europe and Brazil, but the growth in the export market is with China.
But not everyone's a winner. Clyde's company makes mugs. They're low cost and struggle to compete with cheap imports. He thinks customers should shop patriotically.
If you're strictly looking at price, it's one thing, but if you're committed to helping keep jobs in the United States, hopefully the American public will be willing to pay that slightly higher price to buy the product.
Back in Jonathan's bike workshop, he has big plans to bring manufacturing operations home in the next couple of years. That would create more jobs and complete his American dream.
And finally, we're going to go back to the US presidential campaign. In fact, nearing its conclusion, of course. Matthew's got some eye-popping. He's called them eye-popping, not me, but it kind of sums it up. Figures on what it's all going to cost.
I think these are eye-popping. $6 billion. That's how much the two candidates, and in particular the group supporting them, are spending on this campaign. And that's up by almost half since 2008. The main reason is the emergence of these well-funded political action committees, super PACs as they are known in the US. They can spend what they like as long as they don't coordinate with the official campaigns. Well, not surprisingly, with all that money being spent on advertising, for some voters, it's getting a little bit wearing. Take a listen.
It's really hard to get away from ads. Sometimes the same candidate will have ads, multiple ads during like the same commercial break. So, it gets a little, I'm not sure how helpful it is. At the end of the day.
It gets to the point where that's pretty much all I see sometimes. And it's also a little funny because I'll see one and then immediately afterwards I'll see another one that contradicts it. And then you just sort of don't know what to think. So I have gotten to the point where I don't really pay attention to them. It's kind of an overkill.
Don't blame them for being fed up with it. At least they've only got another week to go. Lucky they. My eyes have officially popped. Matthew, thank you very much. Matthew with the business. The latest news. Claire will be here after the weather here on Full Circle.